You are in the prime of your earning years, building what you once promised yourself would be a secure and dignified future. Yet there is a quiet force that can dismantle decades of discipline without announcing its arrival. Addiction in midlife does not storm the gates. It seeps in subtly, disguised as stress relief after a demanding day, as a harmless indulgence to celebrate success, or as a coping mechanism for the relentless pressures of mortgages, tuition payments, aging parents, and retirement planning. By the time you notice the cracks, the structure you believed was solid may already be weakening. The financial impact of addiction during midlife is rarely discussed with the urgency it deserves, yet it is one of the most profound and underestimated consequences of compulsive behavior. Adults over 40 often occupy leadership roles, command higher salaries, and carry substantial responsibilities, which creates the illusion of insulation. The paycheck is steady, the portfolio is growing, the credit score is strong, and the external signs of success are intact. But addiction does not discriminate based on income, education, or professional title. In fact, higher earnings can temporarily buffer the visible damage, allowing destructive patterns to continue longer without immediate financial collapse. That buffer becomes dangerous because it fosters denial. Small daily expenditures on substances, gambling platforms, online shopping sprees, or other compulsive behaviors appear insignificant relative to income. Yet finance operates on principles of accumulation and compounding, and so does loss. What feels like a manageable expense today can silently compound into missed investment opportunities, reduced retirement contributions, and escalating debt. The tragedy is not only the money spent directly on the addictive behavior, it is the erosion of cognitive clarity that accompanies it. Addiction alters the brain's reward circuitry, narrowing focus toward immediate gratification while diminishing sensitivity to long-term consequences. The very executive functions required for prudent financial decision-making - risk assessment, impulse control, strategic planning become compromised. When judgment is impaired, business decisions become reactive rather than deliberate, negotiations lose precision, and long-term financial goals are postponed in favor of short-term relief. This is why the financial consequences extend far beyond the visible. Transactions on a bank statement. Healthcare expenses begin to rise as physical and mental health decline. Productivity diminishes, sometimes subtly at first, then more noticeably. Opportunities for advancement may be missed, not because of lack of talent, but because consistency and reliability start to erode. Legal complications, insurance premium increases, and strained professional relationships add additional layers of cost. The cumulative effect is not a dramatic overnight bankruptcy but a gradual depletion of momentum. Decades of disciplined saving can be offset by a few years of compromised decision-making. The most sobering realization is that midlife is not merely another chapter, it is the critical window for wealth consolidation. The investments made now are meant to compound over the next 20 or 30 years. When addiction interferes during this pivotal period, the lost compounding growth cannot easily be recovered. Financial stability is not just about numbers, it is about protecting the cognitive and emotional systems that sustain wise choices. The earlier this connection is understood, the greater the chance of preserving both financial integrity and personal freedom. What makes the financial impact of addiction in midlife especially dangerous is that it rarely feels catastrophic at the beginning. It feels manageable, even rational. You tell yourself that you deserve relief after decades of responsibility, that one more drink, one more late-night betting session, one more impulsive investment will not derail a portfolio built over 20 years. Yet addiction is not defined by intensity alone, it is defined by repetition and loss of control. The brain, conditioned by frequent dopamine surges, recalibrates its baseline, demanding more stimulation to achieve the same relief. As tolerance increases, so does spending. The expenses expand quietly: premium alcohol instead of moderate consumption, larger wagers instead of small bets, riskier financial moves instead of conservative planning. At first, income absorbs the difference. Then savings begin to compensate. Eventually, the relationship will continue to grow and evolve. Retirement contributions are paused temporarily, emergency funds are tapped just this once, and credit lines are used with the confidence that future earnings will repair the damage. This is the point where suspense builds, because externally everything may still appear stable. The house remains intact, the career title remains impressive, the social reputation, remains polished. Internally, however, the architecture of long-term security is weakening. Healthcare costs may start rising as sleep deteriorates, blood pressure increases, anxiety intensifies, or depression deepens. Insurance premiums can climb after incidents related to impaired judgment. Productivity declines in subtle ways: missed deadlines, decreased creativity, avoidable errors. In competitive professional environments, even small performance declines can stall promotions or trigger early retirement discussions. The financial consequences multiply indirectly. Lost promotions mean lost salary growth. Reduced bonuses mean diminished investment capital. Early retirement due to health complications compresses earning years precisely when income should be peaking. Meanwhile, compound interest does not pause out of sympathy. Every year that retirement accounts receive reduced contributions represents not only a lost deposit but decades of unrealized growth. High earners are particularly vulnerable to underestimating this cumulative risk because liquidity creates psychological distance from consequence. Financial resources mask urgency, and that masking effect fuels denial. Dr. Anna Lemke often emphasizes that addiction thrives in environments of abundance, where access is easy and external consequences are delayed. In midlife, abundance can mean disposable income, professional autonomy, and social tolerance for stress-related indulgence. But abundance without accountability can become erosion without awareness. Executive function, already compromised by addictive patterns, further weakens risk assessment. You may begin rationalizing speculative investments, over-leveraging assets, or ignoring red flags in business partnerships because the reward-seeking brain prioritizes excitement over prudence. Behavioral addiction intersects dangerously with financial decision-making, transforming calculated strategy into impulsive action. Over time, small miscalculations accumulate into significant wealth depletion. What once felt like a controlled indulgence becomes a system that dictates behavior. The suspense lies in the fact that collapse is rarely dramatic, it is incremental. A postponed retirement goal here, a withdrawn investment there, a missed opportunity for promotion somewhere else. The compound effect of these seemingly isolated decisions can reshape the trajectory of an entire financial life. By the time the realization fully surfaces, years may have passed, and the gap between where you are and where you intended to be can feel overwhelming. Yet recognition is the first stabilizing force, because awareness restores the possibility of deliberate choice before the damage becomes irreversible. The turning point arrives not when the bank account is empty, but when clarity begins to return and you recognize that financial stability is inseparable from cognitive discipline. Midlife is not merely about accumulating assets. It is about safeguarding the mental architecture that sustains wise stewardship of those assets. When impulse control is restored, so is the capacity for long-term vision. Protecting wealth, therefore, is not solely a financial exercise, it is a neurological and behavioral commitment. The same brain that can rationalize self-sabotage can also be trained toward restraint, accountability, and foresight. Recovery is not only about abstaining from a substance or behavior, it is about rebuilding executive function, restoring delayed gratification, and re-establishing the discipline required for strategic planning. Financial repair begins with radical transparency. You examine expenditures without denial, assess retirement contributions without defensiveness, and calculate opportunity costs without minimizing their impact. This is not an exercise in shame, it is an exercise in precision. When you measure the direct costs of addictive behavior alongside indirect costs, lost productivity, medical expenses, stalled promotions, depleted compounding growth, you transform vague anxiety into concrete data. Data creates direction. From there, accountability systems become essential. Automated retirement contributions, spending caps, financial advisors, peer support groups, and structured recovery programs provide guardrails while cognitive strength is being rebuilt. Midlife demands structure because the stakes are high. Mortgages must be paid, children's education funded, aging parents supported, and retirement secured. The discipline required to meet these obligations mirrors the discipline required to maintain sobriety and behavioral control. Each reinforces the other. As cognitive clarity improves, decision-making becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Risk assessment regains balance. Long-term planning reclaims priority over short-term relief. The earlier this recalibration occurs, the more powerful compounding can once again become an ally instead of a missed opportunity. Suspense gives way to responsibility, and responsibility gives way to momentum. You begin to realize that financial erosion, while serious, is not destiny. Even if contributions were paused, they can be resumed. Even if debt accumulated, it can be systematically reduced. Even if promotions were missed, credibility can be rebuilt through consistent performance and restored reliability. The narrative shifts from quiet decline to disciplined reconstruction. There is profound motivation in understanding that the same years that could have accelerated decline can instead accelerate recovery. Midlife remains a pivotal window for wealth consolidation, provided cognitive clarity is protected. Financial security is not only about net worth, it is about freedom from compulsion, freedom from secrecy, and freedom from impulsive decision-making. When you guard your mind, you guard your money. When you strengthen impulse control, you strengthen retirement projections. When you choose long-term stability over immediate gratification, you choose dignity for your future self. The cost of addiction in midlife is real and measurable, but so is the value of restoration. Every disciplined choice today compounds forward, just as every impulsive choice once did. The direction of compounding can change. It begins with awareness, continues with accountability, and solidifies with consistent action. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notifications so you can see our new videos early.